So while the BMW is away at paint, we thought we'd get ourselves another project. Now I've been back to Copart again, got another crash damaged car, and I wanted to replace my daily driver. Now I sold my daily driver not long ago to help start funding some of these projects, and I was going to run about in my van, but unfortunately my van on a daily basis just doesn't cut it for me, and it's coming into winter and my other toy, I'm getting a bit soft for that and I'm not driving about in the wet. So this is what we've got here. So here it is, 2012 Audi TT. It is the base model, but it's, as I said, it has just got to be a daily driver for me when I do fix it. It is crash damaged, but we'll come to that in a minute. It is relatively clean, it's got about 77,000 miles on the clock, and it does seem to be looked after at various points. However, I'll show you the inside it in a minute. It doesn't look as though it's been looked after much recently. It isn't actually too bad in damage. It took me a bit of time to figure out what actually happened. And while I was waiting on it getting delivered, I did order a new wing and a new headlight. I wasn't sure how it had been crashed. It seemed a bit strange, but it actually looks as though it's just had a bit of a knock here, and it's been in a garage to get insurance assessed. We've stripped it down partially and we've decided to write it off. It's a category N write off. Not much damage to it. With this one I think we'll take a bit of a different approach though. I'm going to keep it as a daily, so I'm going to make it a bit different. It is a bit dated inside. The stereo, it could be doing my upgraded. I'd also like to make it look a little bit more like a TTRS. That would involve changing the bumpers, the side skirts, putting different wheels on it, possibly lowering it at some point, and doing a few other things just to make it a bit more how I want it. But first I think we'll just take another little look round it, and then we'll get to working on fixing some of the damage, and we'll see how we go from there. So looking round the car here, there isn't actually too much damage. The front end, as I said, is a little bit damaged at the front corner here. It's not too bad. I got a wing off eBay for £195, I got a headlight for £100. However, when we got to come back to inside in a minute, it's absolutely minging in there. When we got the car delivered, that didn't work, that was the wrong button. It's the boot I meant to pop. When we got the car delivered, we actually found, well done Ryan, when we got the car delivered we actually found in the boot is a perfect condition headlight and the grille trim. Now the grille trim, that's a bonus as well because they're about £70. These things here are bits for either side of the front grille. Now going back to the front again under the bonnet is absolutely bob on straight. There's no damage to the inner wing panel. All the front plastics are perfectly good condition, no damage there, and as you can see it has been stripped down for the insurance. I wasn't sure at first if maybe it had been stolen, somebody stole it for the headlight or that, but it does look as though it's been the insurance that's done it. So we've got to start by taking off the front bumper, and then we'll take off the wing, we'll replace the wing, and then we'll put it back together again. One of the things I like to do when I get the car is actually have a look and see what kind of person's had it before. Now this car is absolutely filthy inside. I don't think we've mistreated the car, we've just not cleaned it very well. There's like a lot of long hair down both sides of the seats. It's just never been cleaned out for a long time. Now looking in it, there isn't a lot of stuff lying about, but opening the glove box there's some cutlery, nail boards, some barbecue sauce, face mask, lovely. Looking about and there's a couple of labels for vapes and things and that in the back, so I think somebody's just used the car and just never really looked after it when they've had it. So starting the car up, there is absolutely zero warning lights on the dashboard, so everything seems healthy enough there. Stereo, yeah, stereo is something that you would see in I think I've last seen a stereo in that in an old Ford Mondeo or a Ford Escort or something like that, so that'll be getting changed. Hopefully get a nice Apple CarPlay unit in there, and then we'll try and update some more of the interior as well. The seats themselves are absolutely perfect condition. They just, as I say, they just need a good clean. I actually like the seats better in this than I do in the higher trim levels because it's got the half Alcantara interior. I don't actually like the whole leather ones. Down here the mats, I'm going to replace them. They're just a bit minging, the driver's one's a bit damaged, and there's not matching ones in the back, so we'll get them changed. But we'll give this a good clean out after we've fixed the damage to the front of the car. So one of the good things about ordering parts up front is I've had a good look at the wing and actually see where it comes off. So there's a couple of bolts here that are already out. There is a couple of bolts down here that are held on to the inner wing panel, and then there's 2 bolts back here, and then something behind the side skirt. We can take that off there, and then we'll get that off and see what the damage is behind it, see if there is any. Hopefully not, and then we'll put a new wing back on. So after the realisation that my low jack didn't actually fit under the low Audi, we then had to move to the back of the car to jack it back up, put it back on an axle stand, which would then allow us to get the jack back under the front to get the front jacked up. Not ideal, but hey, that's sometimes what you've got to do. Jacking the car up on the mounting points, making sure to show Ryan a nice solid place to jack it up, and explaining the importance of not jacking the car up on the floor just in case you cause damage to the structure of the car. This gave us just enough room to go back under the front and find the subframe mounting bolt. This was the strongest point that we could get the jack under, and it allowed us to get the front of the car up. Ryan then starts to take the wheel off for us to be able to access the arch liner, and if you've been following these videos and want to see more, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, that way you can get notified when any new content comes up. Don't forget, this car isn't so much about the damage repair, it's more about making a daily driver to my spec, showing how some modifications are done once the car is fixed. Again, learning the boys some of these things along the way. Now that the wheel's off, it gives us access into the arch liner, so we'll take the torque screws off there. There's a few clips up around the edges, a few 10mm nuts there, and then a few screws at the front as well, which we'll take that off. That allows us access into the screws that are here, and it allows us access into the screws at the back, the bolts at the back here, and then it should just pop the wing off after we've gone out behind the side skirt. Now at this point, Ryan is removing all the fixings holding the arch liner on, and that will allow us to get into the remaining bolts holding the wing on. Some of them are quite hard to see due to the dirt on the arch liner, but I'll address that in a later video. I then pull back the arch liner and remove some foam to get to the bolts in the back of the wing. I then remove the 2 small bolts down behind the side skirt. A lot of people say you need to remove the side skirt to get to them, but there's just enough room to do it by just pulling the skirt back slightly. Now, I thought I'd captured it a bit better, but down at the back of the side skirt here, there was a good half kilo of mud and rotten leaves all holding dampness down behind the liner, and it all fell out. Thankfully there isn't any rust damage, but I will be taking all the liners off in the future to ensure there isn't any rust and give it a general clean up to protect it for the future. I urge anyone with a TT to do the same to prevent any future issues. We then move on to the top of the wing, and it's then just 3 10mm bolts holding the top on, and normally there would be 2 further bolts at the front of the wing, but again they've already been moved by the insurance assessors. Just when I thought it was freed off, I then find 2 further 10mm bolts holding the front bracket. We'll remove them, and then that should free off the whole wing. There does however appear to be some panel bond or seam sealer just holding the back of the wing on, so we get the screwdriver in there and just prise it out. At this point I then get the fright of my life when I do pull it off. Just watch. This looks like it's some glue holding it, so hopefully, just get this off in a second. And I got covered, absolutely covered in muck. Put the camera on. So after spraying myself in the eyes, trying to remove the front wing, it was just some panel seal that was holding on. Wasn't any further screws or anything, so that's all good there. Just having a look at some of the damage, there is a bolt-on bracket there to hold the front of the front wing. It is bent in a little bit. I am going to try and sort it. If not, I'm going to order a new one. We'll give that a go, but first we're going to put the headlight back in and we'll see how that works. So I've took the headlight out of the boot. We're going to put this back on the car. Interestingly, somebody's actually stole the bulbs out of it, so we have replaced the bulbs. Thankfully the other headlight I bought had the bulbs in it, so we've stolen them out of that just now, but we will be selling that headlight back on eBay again. We'll put this back in and we'll see how we go on. So the first thing we do is plug it back in. And then that should just slide back in.
This way.
Yeah, it should slide back in there.
Down maybe.
Nope, that's it.
Is it not going? Oh, that's what was in there.
Position. So. Thankfully, there's actually enough dirt on it so you can... Now thankfully the headlight we found in the boot is lining up quite nicely. Unfortunately though, we are missing a few nuts and bolts and it didn't come with the car, so it's going to limit what we can achieve today. We're currently using a couple of temporary screws just to get it in place for now, and I'll have to sit down later on the computer to source exactly what we need to put right. I will cover later on exactly the websites I use just to show you how easy it is to find the parts and get the correct parts numbers for going to Audi. That'll help once we've got all the rest of the screws. We can align it, all three nuts can get aligned in. That looks a lot better. We'll put the wing back on.
When we removed the wheel, we noticed there was a big cut in the back of it. This is dangerous and will need replaced.
We then line the wing up using the original paint marks just to see how close the alignment is. Thankfully this time it seems to be about perfect and makes our job here much easier, and putting the car back together happens a lot quicker when you aren't spending hours aligning the panels up. And these two align perfectly to the original marks. So we're just lining up the top marks so far where the paint's been. This wing has actually lined up perfectly so far. The bracket that's bent at the front doesn't look too bad. I'm going to take the bumper off and we'll try and bend that bracket back in. As I said, if it doesn't work we'll change it. Put these bolts back in now, and then that should be the wing back in place. Then it's a simple case of putting the nuts back in at the back of the wing and then putting the ones back in behind the side skirt. And that is the wing then refitted fully. As you can see, the wing lines up perfect. Just like to take this bumper off now, and then we'll see if we can get the bumper repaired. We'll get that back on. Taking the bumper off, there is only one nut remaining up behind the passenger arch liner. There is a couple missing from here too that I will have to order. I could have made it easier for myself by raising the side of the car and removing the wheel, but I can get just enough room to get to the nut, and as it's the only remaining one, I thought it easier just to persevere at this point. Then it's 4 T20 Torx screws across the top of the bumper, and that is pretty much all that's still holding the bumper on. The bumper then comes off, and further evidence that it was already done was the fog lights were disconnected. So with the bumper we actually found part of the bracket that was missing actually lying in the under tray. We're going to glue that back on with epoxy resin, get that back in place, we'll get this clip back in, we'll glue this back down, maybe use a bit of heat, get that back in there. We'll actually use a little bit of heat to weld that on, and then we're going to cover everything in epoxy resin, and we'll see how strong that makes it. When we stripped the bumper down we noticed that there is actually 3 nuts missing. One for that side, 2 for this side, so we'll have to order them. There's also a little bracket that goes in under the headlight that's missing, that's obviously been taken out or been damaged, just the same as this one here, so we'll have to order that. So once we've fitted that, once we've actually repaired that, we'll have to go in and we'll see if we can order those bits online, see if we can get them delivered, and then we'll put the bumper back on. To do a temporary repair in the bumper we start off with some 2-pack epoxy Araldite. This allows us to just glue the broken plastic bits back together. Because it was snapped off, it really was quite awkward to get this bit of plastic back in place, but after a little bit of perseverance we got it. We then take the plastic staple gun and add some extra strength to it. Sorry about back to the camera here, it was just the camera was there at the time and I got a little bit carried away with what I was doing. Reese arrived to inspect our hard work at this point and gives his seal of approval. As you can see there's the staples. Then lastly I'm just got to use a soldering iron just to melt some of the tabs from the main shell of the bumper back onto the frame, and that should give it the strength it needs. Then some more epoxy glue, just filling in any gaps that I can find just to give it a little bit more strength. I'm not too happy with the fact that it's cracked, but again it is only a temporary measure. I am going to replace the bumper. As I've mentioned before, I do want a TTRS bumper just to make the car look that little bit nicer, and we'll do something with the back end to match as well. And last but not least, a generous helping of everybody's favourite tiger seal. This will just give it that last bit of protection, that last bit of strength once it's fully dry. After this we have to leave it at least 24 hours to dry. I need to go order some parts, so that makes it a nice time to end today's video. So if you like this, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.